But the scale is not linear. A Category 5 isn't just 5 times stronger than a Category 1. It is exponentially more destructive. At Category 5, with winds over 157 miles per hour, the physics of wind pressure changes. It doesn't just push on a building, it acts like a battering ram. Roofs don't just leak, they are peeled off like the skin of a banana. But even monsters are mortal. The hurricane has a fatal flaw. It is addicted to its fuel source. The moment it makes landfall, the connection to the warm ocean is severed. The engine begins to starve. Friction from the land drags against the wind, slowing the spin. The structure begins to wobble. However, a dying hurricane has one last weapon. Even as the winds die down, the moisture remains. The storm wrings itself out like a wet sponge. This is why inland flooding is often the deadliest part of a hurricane. The wind gets the headlines, but the water takes the lives. Eventually, the system dissolves. It becomes a remnant low, a ghost of the monster it once was, drifting back into the chaos of the atmosphere. From a ripple in the African air to a planetary-scale heat engine, the life cycle of a hurricane is a reminder of a humbling truth. We live on a planet that is alive, dynamic, and terrifyingly powerful. We don't control these forces. We can only predict them, prepare for them, and respect the thermodynamics of hell. If you want to understand what happens when the opposite occurs, when the air refuses to rise and traps heat on the ground, you need to watch our deep dive on heat domes right here. Thanks for watching. Stand still for a second. Look at the ground beneath your feet. It feels solid, doesn't it? Permanent. We grow up believing that the Earth is a finished product. We think the map is done. We think that continents, coastlines, and mountains are things that change over millions of years, moving so slowly that human beings can't even perceive it. But that is a lie. Right now, at this exact moment, the planet is being remolded. It is being physically carved up and rearranged. And this time, it's not happening because of a slow drift of tectonic plates or the gradual cycle of an ice age. It is happening because of us. We are currently living through a geological transformation that usually takes eons, compressed into a single human lifetime. We aren't just changing the weather, we are changing the actual shape of the Earth. From coastlines that are vaporizing into the ocean to frozen soil that is turning into liquid, the solid ground is vanishing. This isn't a story about what might happen in the year 2100. This is a story about the foundation of our world collapsing right now. Today, we are going to look at the scars. We are going to journey to the places where the map is being erased, where ancient vaults of ice are cracking open to release apocalyptic threats, and where the fundamental mechanics of our planetary engine are breaking down. To understand why the physical shape of our world is warping, you have to stop thinking about global warming as just hot summer days. You have to think of it as energy, pure, raw physics. Our planet is essentially a massive, complex engine that runs on a very specific, very delicate balance of energy. For thousands of years, the atmosphere acted as the perfect regulator. It was a planetary blanket, calibrated exactly right. Sunlight hits the surface, the Earth warms up, and the excess heat bounces back out into the vacuum of space. The greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, they were the stitching in that blanket, trapping just enough heat to keep water liquid and life possible. It was a perfect system, but we broke the regulator. By burning fossil fuels relentlessly since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, we haven't just added a little CO2, we have fundamentally altered the chemistry of the sky. By 2025, carbon dioxide concentrations are projected to hit 425.7 parts per million. That number might sound abstract, but it represents a concentration more than 50% higher than anything our ancestors experienced before the industrial age. We didn't just thicken the blanket, we turned it into a heat trap. Scientists call this the Earth's energy imbalance. It means the planet is now inhaling more energy than it can exhale, and that energy has to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear, it accumulates. Recent studies are screaming this data at us. The rate of heat accumulation has soared. This heat is soaking into the oceans, burying itself in the land, and drilling into the ice. We are seeing the results in the temperature records. 2015 to 2024 is officially the warmest decade ever recorded by the World Meteorological Organization. But again, don't think about the temperature. Think about the power required to heat an entire planet. That trapped energy is a kinetic force. It is a weapon. It is currently attacking the solid structures of the Earth, dissolving coastlines and pushing the entire planetary system toward a state it hasn't seen in millions of years. The most violent evidence of this reshaping is happening where the land meets the sea. If you want to see the Earth vanishing, you have to look at the Arctic. This region is often called the canary in the coal mine for climate change. But that's too soft a metaphor. The canary isn't just dying, it is screaming. The Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. This isn't a prediction. This is what satellites and sensors are confirming every single day. And this heat has unleashed a 3-pronged attack on the land itself. The first weapon is the ocean. For millions of years, the Arctic coastlines were defended by a shield of thick, permanent sea ice. That ice absorbed the blows of winter storms. But that shield is shattered. As the ice disappears, the ocean is left wide open. Now, without that buffer, massive waves and storm surges are hammering directly into the land for months on end. But the second weapon is even more insidious because it comes from within the land itself. The ground in the Arctic isn't just dirt, it's permafrost. It's soil that has been frozen as hard as concrete for millennia. It is the structural rebar that holds the landscape together. But as the air warms, that concrete turns to mud. The ice inside the soil melts, and the structural integrity of the continent simply fails. Imagine a cliff face that isn't made of rock, but of frozen mud. Now imagine heating that mud until it turns to slush. The land literally slumps. It subsides. It dissolves. When you combine these two forces, ferocious waves hitting dissolving land, you get erosion on a scale that looks like a special effects movie. In some parts of the Arctic, we aren't talking about losing an inch a year. We are seeing coastlines retreat by 30 to 40 meters every single year. That is the length of a basketball court vanishing into the water every season. Entire indigenous communities, villages that have stood for generations, and critical modern infrastructure are hanging off the edge of cliffs, waiting to be swallowed. And then comes the third factor, the one that affects every single person watching this video. Global sea level rise. The heat we've trapped is causing the ocean water itself to physically expand, thermal expansion. But it's also melting the giants, the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets. This isn't like an ice cube melting in a glass of water. This is like dumping trillions of tons of new water into the system. The rate of rise has more than doubled, from 2.1 millimeters a year in the 90s to 4.5 millimeters today. The Greenland ice sheet is hemorrhaging mass. This rising water acts like a rising floor. It lifts every storm surge higher. It pushes salt water into our aquifers, poisoning the fresh water we drink and the soil we farm. We are literally shrinking the available land on this planet. But while the coasts are crumbling, something even more terrifying is waking up deep inland. Let's talk about the sleeping giant beneath the surface: permafrost. It covers nearly a quarter of the land in the northern hemisphere. You can think of permafrost as Earth's deep freeze. Inside this frozen soil are the remains of plants and animals that died thousands of years ago, locked in suspended animation. This isn't just dirt, it is a carbon bomb. Estimates suggest that there is double the amount of carbon frozen in this ground than there is in the entire atmosphere today. For human history, that vault has been locked. But the lock is breaking. As the Arctic warms, the freezer is failing. Microbes, which have been dormant for eons, are waking up. They are beginning to feast on this ancient organic matter, and as they eat, they release gas. Carbon dioxide, yes, but also methane. And methane is the nightmare gas. It is over 80 times more effective at trapping heat than CO2 in the short term. This triggers the most feared dynamic in all of climate science: the feedback loop. The permafrost thaws and releases gas. That gas traps more heat. The heat causes more thawing, which releases more gas. It is a self-perpetuating engine of warming that we cannot turn off. The Arctic boreal permafrost is likely already transitioning from a carbon sink into a carbon source. And you can see this happening with your own eyes. The landscape is warping. They call it thermokarst. It looks like the Earth has been punched. As the ice underground melts, the surface collapses into pits and craters. Roads are buckling. Buildings are cracking in half. In the forests, the trees are losing their footing, tipping over at wild, chaotic angles, a phenomenon scientists literally call drunken forests. In some places, entire hillsides are liquefying into massive landslides, exposing this dark, ancient carbon to the sky. Even if we stopped burning all fossil fuels today, this carbon would continue to leak out for centuries. We are shrinking our own survival budget. All of these changes, the melting ice, the crumbling coasts, the rotting permafrost, they are not isolated events, they are dominoes. And we are pushing them toward what scientists call tipping points. A tipping point is a threshold where a small change triggers a massive, irreversible transformation. It's the moment the roller coaster goes over the top of the hill. There is no coming back. The Global Tipping Points Report 2025 is a flashing red light. It warns us that we are racing toward these cliffs faster than anyone predicted. We have likely already triggered the first one, the death of warm water coral reefs. These aren't just pretty rocks. They support 25% of marine life. Their survival limit is around 1.2 degrees Celsius of warming. We are pushing past 1.5 degrees. We are watching the largest biological structure on Earth die in real time. But the dominoes get bigger. We are looking at the ice sheets of West Antarctica and Greenland. If they cross their tipping points, the melt becomes self-sustaining. It wouldn't matter what we do afterwards. We would be locking in meters of sea level rise that would redraw every map in every classroom on Earth. And then there is the AMOCI, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. This is the great ocean conveyor belt that pumps warm water north and keeps the climate of Europe mild. It is the heartbeat of the Atlantic, but the fresh water pouring off of melting Greenland is clogging the arteries of this system. It is now at its weakest point in 1,600 years. Some models suggest a total collapse is not just possible, but increasingly likely. If the AMOC shuts down, it would be a planetary catastrophe. Europe freezes. Tropical monsoon rains shift, causing mass starvation. The sea level on the east coast of North America shoots up. It would be a climate shock that no civilization is ready for. This information is heavy. It is terrifying. But we cannot afford to look away, because understanding that the Earth is being geologically remade is the only thing that gives us a fighting chance. There is no magic bullet here. We need a strategy that matches the scale of the threat. It starts with mitigation. That is the non-negotiable demand of physics. We must stop adding fuel to the fire. We have to cut emissions, not gradually, but radically. We have to transition our entire energy grid from the dirty fuels of the 19th century to the renewables of the 21st. We have to rewire the way we grow food, move goods, and build cities. But we also have to be realists. Some of this damage is done. The world has changed, and it isn't changing back anytime soon. That means we need adaptation. We have to prepare for the new shape of the planet. We need to build seawalls, restore the wetlands that absorb floods, and engineer crops that can survive the heat. We have to rethink where we live. And we have to ensure that the people who did the least to cause this problem aren't left to drown in the aftermath. We are in the critical decade, right now. The geological future of this planet is being written by the decisions we make in the next few years. You are not just an observer in this process. You are a participant. The first step is to refuse to be ignorant. Share this reality. Understand the mechanics of what is happening so you can demand action that actually matters. Support the scientists and the organizations fighting on the front lines. And talk about it. What change are you seeing in your own backyard? What worries you the most? Tell us in the comments. We read them. The Earth is shifting beneath our feet. The map is being redrawn. The window to save the stable climate we were born into is closing fast, but the pen is still in our hands. We can still choose what the next chapter looks like. Let's not waste this moment. The most dangerous weapon in the solar system isn't a nuclear bomb. It isn't an asteroid hurtling through the dark. It is the star that wakes you up every morning. We look up at the sun and see a steady golden disk.